African national parks is mandated to ensure the formal protection of critical biodiversity, manage national parks, and promote conservation-compatible economic activity within the buffer zones of these national parks. Throughout, SANParks is required to promote the social and economic well-being of communities. This film showcases the challenges faced by SANParks in performing its mandates within an important microcosm of the South African landscape, the city of Cape Town and its west coast. It highlights the innovative approach that SANParks has adopted through partnerships in the West Coast Biodiversity Corridor. The city of Cape Town, at the southern tip of Africa, is located within the Cape Floral Region, one of South Africa's 8 World Heritage Sites. The Cape Floral Region is one of the richest areas for plants in the world. While it represents less than 0.5% of the area of Africa, it is home to nearly 20% of the continent's flora. It is one of the world's 18 biodiversity hotspots. The city is known for its biodiversity and cultural heritage, not least for Robben Island, a popular tourist destination and World Heritage Site in its own right, a place for the isolation of numerous political prisoners and lepers stretching back to the 17th century, and more recently for the incarceration of the former president and ANC leader Nelson Mandela and his comrades. The city's population is approximately 3.8 million. The vast majority live within the lower income settlements of the city, including 20.5% of the population, who live in 204 sprawling informal settlements. The expanded unemployment rate of the city of Cape Town is 24.6%, and inequality remains a major challenge. Whilst the city is confronting challenges of poverty and inequality, it also boasts world-class economic infrastructure. Cape Town hosts South Africa's second busiest international air and seaports. These transport linkages underpin the city's strategic role within a much greater economic region that includes neighbouring districts such as the West Coast, provinces and countries. The city contributes 11.3% to the gross domestic product of South Africa. The finance and business service sectors constitute the city's largest economic activity by far, with other competitive sectors being fishing, clothing and textiles, wood product manufacturing, electronics and hospitality. The city is a major tourist destination, and in the first quarter of 2015 alone, more than 7 million visits were made to Cape Town's 6 major attractions, including Table Mountain, Kirstenbosch National Botanical Gardens, Boulders Beach, V&A Waterfront and Robben Island. The 2010 FIFA World Cup was hosted in South Africa in 10 custom-built stadiums, including the Cape Town and Athlone stadiums. The beautiful natural environment of the city attracts a global affluent class that settle primarily along or in close proximity to the Atlantic coastline. These properties are in stark contrast to the informal settlements and low-income housing of the Cape Flats. Increased demand for both prime property and for housing for the poor is placing relentless pressure on a fast-shrinking Cape Floral Kingdom. The Table Mountain National Park was proclaimed in 1998. Its 25,000 hectares hosts 1,500 plant species and numerous animals. Table Mountain is one of the new 7 natural wonders of the world and receives 4.2 million visitors annually. The Peninsula mountain chain has a very high endemism, resulting from it being cut off from the Cape Fold Mountains. Surrounded by ocean in the south and the city suburbs in the north, the Table Mountain National Park is truly an island in a sea of urbanization. Construction of the Chapman's Peak Road took place in the early 1900s, built using convict labor, and is one of the most spectacular scenic drives in the world. It hosts 2 world-renowned sporting events, the 2 Oceans Marathon and the Cape Argos Cycle Tour, known as the largest public registered cycle race in the world. Cape Point is the only fenced-off section in the Table Mountain National Park and has large game species including Cape Mountain zebra, bontebok, eland and red hartebeest. Fire is a natural occurrence in the fynbos, as many of the plant species need fire to germinate their seeds and regenerate. The city hosts world-class education and research institutions. The University of Cape Town is the oldest one in South Africa. It is the highest-ranked African university and in 2014 was ranked 4th overall amongst universities in the BRICS and emerging market economies. The West Coast Corridor extends from Blouberg Nature Reserve in the south, eastwards encompassing the marginalised towns of Atlantis and Ramway towards the Darling Hills and as far north as Langebaan and the West Coast National Park. It is a corridor locked between a coastline to the west, an expanding metropole in the south, a declared industrial development zone in Saldanha Bay to the north, and growing pressure for agriculturally productive land from the Darling Hills in the east. The corridor's significance lies in its high biodiversity value. It has been identified by the Worldwide Fund for Nature as one of the two most important climate change adaptation corridors in the Western Cape. The corridor hosts critical ecological services such as freshwater aquifers. It is bordered by an extensive coastline that includes a marine protected area. The corridor is inclusive of a large number of public and private nature reserves, including the West Coast National Park, and is home to numerous cultural, historical, and fossil sites. The corridor falls within the Cape West Coast Biosphere Reserve and the buffer zone of the National Park, a zone delineated to protect the integrity of the park through the encouragement of conservation-compatible economic activity. Whilst the biodiversity significance of the corridor is undisputed, there is huge development pressure on the corridor for upmarket residential developments and linked retail and wholesale activity, demands for development and economic opportunity by the poor communities, and future energy expansion in the region. The Koeberg Nuclear Power Station, located within the corridor, makes the Cape West Coast Biosphere Reserve the only one in the world that hosts a nuclear power plant. The Nuclear Development Exclusion Zone around the plant has enabled the formal protection of critical biodiversity. In addition to nuclear energy, the corridor hosts a gas-fired power station near Atlantis and a number of wind farm energy investments. The predominant vegetation types found within the corridor are Atlantis sand fynbos, Hopefield sand fynbos, and Cape Flats sand fynbos. Both Atlantis and Cape Flats sand fynbos are critically endangered vegetation types. A feature of the sand fynbos types are the dunes, often significant fossil sites. The Atlantis sand dunes are protected by the city. The town of Atlantis was developed in 1975 as a result of Apartheid's Group Areas Act, with thousands of colored people being relocated there from racially reclassified parts of the city. Atlantis' industrial area attracted firms as part of the apartheid government's defense arms manufacturing projects and via tax and other incentives. The termination of these projects and incentives in the mid-80s resulted in high unemployment. Currently, the City of Cape Town is focused on attracting new firms to the industrial estate, primarily in the green industries sector. The old Marmray Road linking the communities of Marmray and Atlantis consists of a significant avenue of blue gum trees, possibly the longest of such a road in the Southern Hemisphere. Marmray was founded in the 16th century as a military and cattle post. In 1808, a German Moravian mission station was established there to house dispossessed Khoi and freed slaves. The double-ended church and parsonage at the mission stations are national monuments. The Marmray community is now a major land reform beneficiary. The town of Marmray is situated towards the southern portion of the Groenekloof Valley, which is the most productive agricultural land in the corridor, extending northwards towards the town of Darling. The valley is known for its wine estates and cattle farming. The West Coast has attracted much attention recently in terms of renewable energy investments. On the 1st of February 2013, the Umoya wind farm went operational with its 37 turbines. The offset benefits of the wind farm have assisted SANParks in expanding and opening up the eastern portions of the West Coast National Park. Within the eastern portion of the West Coast National Park is a defunct custom-made military facility utilized during the heyday of apartheid state to intercept naval and freedom fighter communications along the coast and within neighboring states. The facility was built for secrecy and self-sufficiency. This part of the West Coast is steeped in apartheid military history, with the town of Longabon being the base of the feared South African Special Forces Brigade, or Rekkies. The Rekkies were deployed in South Africa's so-called border wars, mainly in Angola and Namibia in the 1970s and 80s. The infamous 32 Battalion was also accommodated at Longabon, and a major Air Force base was located in Longabon-Weg. The intention is to re-engineer this facility into a modern-day symbol of hope and sustainable development that recognizes, commemorates, and learns from the past. The project is being driven through a partnership amongst SANParks, the George Washington University, Cape Peninsula University of Technology, and University of Cape Town. The Elandsfontein farm lies adjacent to the eastern boundary of the West Coast National Park. Mining rights have been allocated to pursue a high-grade phosphate resource on this farm portion. This farm includes a provincial heritage fossil site. Given the environmental impact of the planned mining activities, The mining right approval conditions includes approximately 9,000 hectares biodiversity offsets to compensate for critical biodiversity loss. Saldanha Bay to the north of the corridor is the largest natural deep-water port in Africa and has recently been declared an industrial development zone focused on the oil and gas sector. Job expectations have driven an influx of unskilled work seekers into the region, increasing unemployment. Approximately 69% of the West Coast population have not completed their matric. The West Coast National Park was proclaimed in 1988, with its key conservation areas being the Longabon Lagoon, the offshore islands in Saldanha Bay, and the Longabon Ramsar site, a wetland of international importance. The lagoon has a rich diversity of marine invertebrates and seaweeds and supports approximately 10% of the coastal wader bird population in South Africa. The lagoon and its marine species are threatened by the Saldanha Bay Industrial Development Zone owing to pollution in the form of chemical and noise. The park includes Porsberg, the first contractual area consisting of portions of privately owned land to be included in a national park. The Porsberg annual daisy flower displays are a major tourist attraction and are a key source of income for the park. The Geelbeek marshes form an important part of the ecosystem in the West Coast. They are the interface between the salt water in the lagoon and the fresh water seeping in from underground aquifers to the south of the lagoon. The park currently protects 2 inland dune fields, which have been found to be important sources of aquifer recharge. They are also rich in fossils, and many discoveries of ancient species that once roamed the West Coast have been found here and preserved in the park and a neighbouring West Coast fossil park. Human footprints dating back 117,000 years were discovered on the shores of the lagoon. Only a few sets of fossilized hominid footprints have ever been discovered in any other locality in the world. The park receives about 240,000 visitors per year. The town of Azefontein, to the south of the park's 16-mile beach and marine protected area, is currently primarily a second home tourism node for the white middle class. It is also the most important snook harbour in the Western Cape. The possibility of opening up a southern entrance gate to the West Coast National Park through Azefontein could unlock the huge economic potential and encourage the economic and population diversification of the town. The western coastline of the corridor is dominated by declared private nature reserves linked to upmarket residential developments. To the south, there are a couple of municipal-owned tourist resorts. The Gansekraal Resort was once part of the larger Gansekraal Farm, recently placed under the custodianship of the Provincial Nature Conservation Authority, Cape Nature. 82% of landowners within this corridor have expressed their support for the establishment of an extended and integrated protected area, or mega nature reserve. Numerous business opportunities linked to the game and tourism industry have been identified, with huge job creation, economic empowerment, and cooperative management possibilities. Such an achievement would ensure the protection of land with high biodiversity value, as well as clearly demonstrating that the conservation of biodiversity and heritage is in the economic and social interests of communities and landowners. The establishment of the mega reserve is supported by SANParks through a global environment facility funded project. The West Coast Biodiversity Corridor Initiative, led by SANParks over the past 2 years, has successfully demonstrated the business case for the formal protection of biodiversity and heritage within a corridor. Through forging partnerships amongst landowners, communities, government authorities within all spheres, parastatals and conservation authorities, a shared vision has been driven to make the West Coast a vibrant region where appreciation of its rich biodiversity, cultural heritage, and partnership delivers sustainable jobs, skills, and opportunities. These opportunities include a mega nature reserve, a science, research, and visitor center, the revitalization of the Silverstroom Gansekraal Resort, the Gansekraal Farm, the Marmray Church VAF, and the islands within the West Coast National Park, collaborative tourism marketing, and the massive upscaling of public works programs linked to alien, coastal, wetlands, and fire management. It is clear that conservation is not a trade-off of development, but rather the key to a sustainable future and improved quality of life for all within the corridor.